Sir, you can speak.
Yes.
Your name?
My name is Micah Beechy, and I am from, as Delegate Rick said, I'm from Surrey County.
Okay.
And I'm here today with my wife Melissa. We live in Surrey and we have 4 kids. We milk 3 cows. Special delivery. We milk 3 cows, and we've developed a cow share program on our farm with 8 families from our local community. Everything I share with you today is documented, and this is where it's different. Every one of those folders, we spent hours and hours going over CDC regulations and information and understanding, trying to get a hold of what they were doing. It's all documented, what I'm going to tell you. We also brought the gift of milk for each of you, that wretched liquid that slaughters humanity by the millions. This debate of raw versus pasteurized milk started in the late 1800s. Some of you may know this story, most of you won't. The infant mortality rate in New York City and Newark, New Jersey at the time was over 50%. City doctors attributed it to the bad milk. The bad milk that was being shipped to the cities from outside, right outside the cities, were these things called swill dairies, in which they kept dairy cows in confinement and fed them beer mash. If you don't know what beer mash is, it's what happens when you boil grain to make beer, and that's the residue that's left over. Cows like it, but it's not their natural food product. Their natural food is grass, hay, and other types of forage. The sanitary conditions were terrible. It's no wonder that milk from sick cows, contaminated with feces from sick cows, contributed to sick kids. 2 men stepped into the fray and said, we need to do something. One man was Nathan Strauth. He was a wealthy philanthropist, and he used his money to pay for pasteurizing plants in the city for this bad milk coming into the city, and it made a difference. The other man was a doctor by the name of Henry Coit, and he said this: I believe in real milk. We've got to figure out a way to make it safe. And so he went to the dairymen outside the city in the rural areas and said to them, if I say to you I'll buy your milk at a better price than these swill dairies are selling it for, will you produce it at these newer hygienic standards? And they said yes, and he began to produce milk from these local dairymen, and he saw amazing results. He was a doctor, and his medical colleagues at the time, it's hard to believe now, recognized the nutritive values, the life-giving values of quality milk, and they remained all the way through this argument in the first part of the 1900s. They remained opposed to pasteurization as a whole. They agreed, if you're going to have nasty milk, pasteurize it, but it's better to have good milk like I brought you today. It has been said many times, raw milk makes people sick at a much higher rate than pasteurized milk. Again, everything I say today is documented in that. The CDC has dramatic warnings against drinking raw milk, especially for young kids. But there are no deaths attributed to raw milk in the last 12 years, which is what the studies from 1998 to today that they have put out. Recently, Mark McAfee he's a dairy farmer from California, threatened to sue CDC because they had 2 that they had listed that were attributed to raw milk. However, they admitted, after he threatened a Freedom of Information lawsuit, that indeed they came from queso fresco that was made from unpasteurized milk. It wasn't from actually drinking it. Now, from 2005 to 2009, CDC statistics show 403 children a year under the age of 5 drown in a bathtub. From a logical standpoint, that would be reason enough to outlaw bathtubs. And yet that's never considered. Why? Because the health benefits of cleanliness outweigh the risks of bathing, in the mind of a good parent. That is what informed parents do with the risks associated with raw milk. We're not talking about people who don't care about it. We're talking about people who want it, and there are thousands of them out there. We know the health benefit outweighs any risk factors that exist, which, by the way, according to the warning label on yours, it is 13 millionths of a chance of getting sick and not dying. In the 1998 to 2012 CDC study, raw milk is supposedly the bad guy, and that's on all foodborne illnesses. That wasn't just raw milk. There was sickness confirmed from drinking raw milk, and they said 2 deaths from it. But as I said, Mark McAfee helped them get a little more light on that subject, and they agreed with him. In the same study, they confirmed, now listen, and you can go online and find this study anytime you want, 3 deaths from pasteurized milk since 1998, 2 deaths from pasteurized cheese, 39 deaths from cantaloupes. I don't see anybody doing that. 18 deaths from deli meat in the same time frame. No deaths from raw milk. In 1984 to 85, most people don't know this, 168,000 people got sick from salmonella poisoning from a pasteurized milk plant in Illinois. 16,000 were potentially hospitalized and 2 died with at least 12 other deaths associated. That's a fact. You can go on the CDC website and find it. And as Dwayne pointed out, Marvin May got 14 kids sick this last year with pasteurized milk. Now, since 1998, 9 cases of illness in the state of Virginia from raw milk. That's it. And I will tell you something. The state of Virginia, the official thing is that there's 2 cow shares. There are hundreds of cow shares. By the way, I'm one of them, and I'm not official. But I have 8 families at home who pay me to take care of their cows and to milk their cows and to give them good, fresh milk. And you know why they do it? Because they want it so bad they're willing to go through a lot of extra trouble for it. There are endless, raging arguments online over the value of drinking raw milk. We could play that game, and I'm sure the Farm Bureau, they've already done it. Bring out all the fear-mongering statements that they do. I'm a member of Farm Bureau, and I despise their stance on this. I despise their stance on any bill that gives a small family-run operation. That's me, that's Dwayne, that's Matthew French, that's a lot of people represented here. Brian Criley. We just want to make a living farming, and we don't have 4,000 acres like a lot of these big ag guys do. We want our family to grow up on the farm. That's what we want. But we can't sell nothing off the farm. You Farm Bureau reps, I hope you heard it, because I'm part of you and you don't represent me. They do not speak for small farmers. State Dairymen's Association doesn't speak for any dairy farmer I have ever met in the state of Virginia or anywhere. Because all of them are small family-run operations that I know. One of my dairy farmer friends said to me, and I quote, "Raw milk is the healthiest damn food in the world." And he cannot stand Farm Bureau's stance on this whole thing. He almost shut down because he couldn't make enough money selling commercially. And by the way, Mr. Paulson, I've drank many a glass of milk from his bulk tank. We're in the middle of a food revolution. That's what the food editor for Virginia Pilot told me last week. Maybe you don't think so. Maybe you just see a bunch of farming food freaks standing here, and you're wrong. There is a huge groundswell of people all over this country who are fed up, no pun intended, with the government interfering with our food choices. Those of us who produce food know it. We get them all the time coming to us. I have a waiting list of people who want milk. Farm Bureau admits that agriculture has become, last periodical they had said this, it's either mega farms or small local farms, and yet they make no attempt to reach out and understand us. They just try to discredit us. Our nation was founded by men and women who believed in freedom and not security. They were willing to go to Jamestown from England with a 50% mortality rate at Jamestown, at Plymouth Rock. 50%! Just for a shot at living free. They wanted freedom, and they accepted the fact that being free men, you assume the responsibility that came with living that way. And I will tell you this, many young Americans and a lot of young Virginians are wanting a return to that. They just want to raise, we want to raise our kids on a farm in a rural setting with neighbors we can trust. We want to eat homegrown foods, including fresh raw milk, and relearn the traditions. My wife makes some amazing cheese. I would tell her to bring some with me, but we ate it all, so. We'll not get rich. This is not enough money to get rich. But when we can make some money by selling milk to our friends and neighbors who are begging for it, it does help. Don't think this is a small issue. Don't define it as junk science or fad. This is a peaceful, determined revolution. And it is going to change the face of agriculture. I promise you that. Finally, all the members of agricultural organizations here today, such as State Dairymen's and Farm Bureau, come as paid representatives to oppose us. But the rest of us, Matthew French, Dwayne, Bernadette, Brian Criley, myself, I take off work. I get no money for coming up here. Dwayne drove 6.5 hours to be here. No money. And we're here today because we're passionate about this. They represent money and power. We represent the heart and soul of ordinary Virginians who just want to live quiet and peaceable lives. At least let this thing go to the House and we can have a good discussion on it anyway.
Here. Let's see if we have any questions.
Yep.
Any questions of the committee? Thank you for coming down.